Here.
Let's move on and talk about UFC. McGregor versus Khabib. We kind of expected it to happen. It is going to happen. Gareth A. Davies is with us now to talk to us a little bit about what we can expect and when the hype starts to kick into overdrive for this. Gareth, before we talk about the specifics of the fight itself, it kind of feels like UFC need this fight, that Dana White and everybody on the corporate side of the organisation could really do with an absolute blockbuster of a build-up and a fight itself, just to remind everybody that UFC is in fact brilliantly well run, perfectly organised and progressive organisation.
Well, a very good morning to you, gentlemen.
How you doing?
I see your jawline, Jer. It means you've been in training. Yes, a point very well made. I mean, I don't think we've spoken since the fight was announced. I think that's correct.
Yeah.
And it is it's a massive fillip for the UFC to have got Conor McGregor back into an octagon, into the UFC's fighting arena, frankly, and against Khabib Nurmagomedov as well, because, you know, when Endeavour, IMG WME, bought the UFC nigh on 3 years ago for $4.5 billion US, it left them with a massive mortgage to pay, gents, you know, and, you know, this will be the biggest selling MMA fight in history on pay-per-view. There's no question about it. It will be enormous because of the generation that you mentioned, Conor, the generation that he carries with him. And as many people are tuning in to see if he's going to get his butt kicked as they are to see if he can show the genius in his great Irish bones, you know. And I think it will be massive, and it will... What it will do, it will bring, if it delivers as a fight, it'll bring a lot of credibility back for the UFC, whose stars have burnt brightly and burnt out. Ronda Rousey's in the WWE right now. She was a massive star like Conor. Brock Lesnar's back and forth WWE and into MMA again between failed drugs tests. John Jones is on the sidelines. He's probably the greatest mixed martial arts fighter of all time. So Conor's return, my God, I can't tell you how excited I was when the fight was announced for October the 6th a couple of weeks ago. I think it was 63 days before they fought. And my first thought was, it's only 9 weeks. Hooray! And I'll be in Vegas in 8 weeks' time to cover it. He's very, very special. Whether you love him or loathe him, he is the biggest star in the UFC. He is one of the biggest stars in combat sports. I don't know if you would count him as the biggest sports star in Ireland, maybe.
I would
Question for you, Jeff.
I'd say profile-wise, it's pretty much no question, isn't it, on an international scale currently. Like, just on that a little bit, it is kind of a double whammy having Conor McGregor back involved, because just thinking about it, and you may be able to shed a bit more light on this, the profile of Khabib Nurmagomedov was pretty big amongst MMA fans, amongst people who watched UFC fight nights, who watched UFC pay-per-views, who were big into their mixed martial arts. But it was only about 6 months ago when this fight started to get touted that the wider world, the wider sporting world and the wider Irish public and from other countries indeed as well, started to realise who this guy was. And the reason why they realised who he was because of his associations with Conor McGregor. So the protracted nature of the negotiations, the incident in Brooklyn and the way this is all played out has just in a very implicit way built the profile of Nurmagomedov, and subsequently, once the fight was announced, built the profile and the hype that is going to explode now over the next 6 weeks.
Definitely, there's no question about it. You know, funnily enough, last night shouldn't admit this, but I watched 2 episodes back to back of the Apprentice USA. Yeah, when Donald Trump was, you know, you're fired, you know, and it was compelling stuff. And it was before he was president of the United States, yeah. And I could completely see why a lot of people were taken in by Donald Trump, the idea of Donald Trump being the man that was leading the country, or the man that was leading, you know, the country that leads the free in the Western world, as America likes to be seen. Conor is the soap, and what I'm saying is Conor is the soap opera of fight sports, as well as being a grand star and a mover and shaker and a lightning rod for change. He brings with him. He is the A side every time he fights. Even when he fought Floyd Mayweather last summer, extraordinarily, he was as much the A side as Floyd Mayweather. Now, Khabib Nurmagomedov, yes, he wasn't that well known. He is 26-0 undefeated. He is the kid that, I tell you what he's known best for, gents, the kid that wrestled with a bear.
Yeah.
That's what he was known as, that viral video that he'd wrestled with the bear. He's not a great personality. I mean, in fact, if anything, PR has turned against him in the last couple of weeks, where, him and his friends are found to be giving money, donating money to homeless people, making them do press-ups. I don't know if you've seen that at all. And it was kind of treated as cruel by the fans. The fact that Conor is a bigger star than Khabib, a much, much bigger star, has also brought to the fore that Khabib is mentally weak in this fight in some ways. I've seen this already, where he's complaining that why should he be the money fight for the UFC and Conor McGregor? I've seen him complaining in a video that he's only going to earn a certain amount of money. Now, I think that really plays into Conor's hands, because Conor's not fighting for money. He is fighting for money, but he's fighting to get his athletic prowess back. The big fight I think people would have liked as well is Nate Diaz. If Khabib gets injured in the meantime, a trilogy fight with Nate Diaz would also be loved by the fans, because he's a big star himself. But this guy is he's just enormous. I mean, I was looking at some videos I'd done with Conor in the past and pictures with him, and you can't get the guy now. You can't get to him. He doesn't. It's like Ali's vow of silence before he fought Spinks. Conor doesn't have to do anything in the build-up. He puts out an Instagram picture, and 1.3 million people like it. I mean, it's just extraordinary, I mean.
So, do we know how much McGregor is actually being given to fight, or is this the traditional arrangements that the UFC have always had with a fighter, where he's getting a set fee, and is he getting a share of the pay-per-views? Have they rewritten the rule book to get McGregor back? Because, you talked about the mortgage that the owners took out when they paid $4 billion odd. McGregor always said he wanted a piece of the company. They were never going to give him that, but they might be giving him untold money. Like, do we know any of the details about the finances?
Well, some of the very biggest stars through the last decade, George St. Pierre, Anderson Silva, people like that, were always given a percentage of the pay-per-view. There's no question he'll be getting a percentage, yeah. So I think, my understanding is that it won't be short of 25 million he'll be getting, yeah. And when you look at the fight probably generating, potentially, if it does 2 million pay-per-view buys, this is a $140 million fight. So, don't be surprised if he earns 30 million from this fight. It's still an extraordinary amount of money for one fight. Could even be more, but I understand that he may be getting 25 million in a share of pay-per-view.
Okay, that makes sense.
It does. So, the bigger the event, the bigger the promotion of it, the more he's going to get from it. I mean, I don't think we've seen him. I don't know what your view is. I don't think we've seen him go into overdrive over promotion. The promotion is the Mac is back, and that's all they needed. It's just extraordinary, really. I mean, that's all he needs to do was to come back.
It will be interesting to see exactly whether or not he is committed to selling those pay-per-views, or if they sell themselves, and how that whole thing works out, and what the next 7 weeks in the build-up to this fight are actually going to be like. Because I guess real questions persist about whether or not Conor McGregor will still have the appetite for a fight against somebody who is as talented and as strong and as old and as cultured a fighter as Khabib is. Like, here is somebody who stated that he was in the fight game to get rich. He's got rich. His dreams have been fulfilled. He's a two-time champ. He's the champ. So, like, is he going to be the same fighter? Like, we know how many fighters lose their edge when they make it, because that was the whole thing that gave them the hunger and the edge in the first place.
Well, you used the word there that was just kind of on the tip of my tongue, which was hunger, you know. And if you talk to John Kavanagh, his coach at SBG there in Dublin, the hunger is there. There's a hunger to prove himself again. Look, there's no question that, you know, that his legitimacy as a great fighter will be enhanced enormously with a victory in this fight against a man who doesn't have a great style for him, you know. Conor has to go to work in this fight, show his hunger, and really do a number on Khabib. I don't think he's got 25 minutes to do it. He's been out of action for a long time, out of action in MMA for nearly 34 months by the time he fights. I mean, it's a very long time. Is that right? No, sorry, 22 months. 16, no, it's 2 years, isn't it? I mean, it's a very long time. So, you know, you can count the fact he trained for Floyd Mayweather, but it was a completely different type of training. But the thing is with Conor, and then the thing is with fights like this, styles make fights. It's not a style that suits him. Having said that, he has been brilliant at shocking opponents by the angles and the strikes and the punches that have and the kicks that have landed on his opponents. I mean, I genuinely have seen fear on the faces of, you know, in Dublin, of Diego Brandao, in Vegas, of Dustin Poirier. Look what he did mentally to Jose Aldo. He broke him before the fight. He's done it to so many people. He came back and he beat Nate Diaz after being beaten by him once. He went straight back in got on the horse and fought the guy again. And he went through the same tunnel of pain. He came out the other end and he beat him. He's got the ability to surprise people. He's got the ability to do the unthinkable. He's got the ability, as I say, to bring out the genius in his own bones. And I think Khabib Nurmagomedov is not difficult to hit for a southpaw. We've seen that against previous opponents like Michael Johnson. Conor hits like a steam train for his weight class. And it would not surprise me to see him knock Khabib out inside 7 minutes. I think he's got 8 to 9 minutes, 9 minutes max to get the job done. I think he'll be prepared to be taken to the ground once, and he could survive that. But he's got to let his hands go. He's got to have great footwork and lateral movement. And in my view, he will knock Khabib out.
Let's show you this video that you mentioned there a few moments ago, Gareth. This is the video involving Khabib and a couple of homeless people. It's not great viewing.
That Khabib handing the money over. Yeah.
Jed making sure that if he ever is drunk and people get him to do press-ups in the street, he will actually get the money at the end of it. Yeah, it's very cruel. I can't do it.
Pretty grim, isn't it? Yeah, just in case anybody wonders, obviously the people laughing at it, his buddies on the video filming it. I mean, you know, it's funny. I didn't really think that anybody was going to be able to give Conor McGregor the moral high ground, but Khabib might have found a way.
Well, listen, I mean, it's funny, isn't it? You know, Conor McGregor can throw a metal fence or a metal object at a bus, a metal object the size of a person at a bus, and smash all the windows, and it kind of end up in court in front of a judge in New York Police Department's offices as well, and or their cells. You know, he can walk out of arrest with his hands behind his back, looking like some kind of criminal, and it can be, you know, headlines around the world. And there's something, you know, that's a cruel video of that maybe makes a mockery of the fact that Conor isn't given a harder time over some of the things that he does. But, you know, he is a genius at PR. Khabib, through that video you've just seen, you know, that was on social media, is clearly, you know, a PR idiot. I mean, it defies logic. And the thing is about Conor, everything he does, and he has done some crass things, Almost everything he does is laced with humour, or it's so extraordinarily outrageous that you wonder if it's a stunt anyway. You know, I mean, you saw the picture at the World Cup final. There he is, sitting in Putin's suite at the World Cup final. He's a very, very loved and influential sports figure. You know, and it's just an extraordinary story. That's why it's so exciting. It's not just the fights around him; it's everything. I hope the Irish are travelling, because again, Las Vegas, the shops, the betting shops, the sports books, the restaurants, the casinos, the staff, the Las Vegans, they just love it every time the Irish come, because they get into groups of 100, 200, 300 in a casino, and they all jump up and down. They don't cause any trouble, or little or no trouble. The security is standing there watching, going, what do we do here? And 2 hours later, they're best friends with the security, because you know what the Irish are like when they're at sport. They're greatest fans in the world. And let's hope that that's what we see again in Las Vegas on October the 6th.